Hello and welcome to the niyama of Santosha, which is contentment. In this day and age, we spend a lot of time searching for what we don't have. This will be the first aspect of this niyama, this search for perhaps trying to find that aspect of the greener grass somewhere else. We spend a crazy, insane amount of time each day training ourselves to be less content. We are constantly seeking for more likes on our social media posts, looking for the next YouTube video, the next news story to read, the next song. It's always the next, instead of being simply content to enjoy what we have within our reach or what we already have right in front of us. There are many of us who are old enough, I'll include myself in this group, to remember what the world was like before cell phones and before the internet. And if you ask those of us who were around back then, you will probably receive a similar answer. This is something that I've perceived in my own self, is that I perceive that it is harder to remain focused and to concentrate on things post-internet, modern internet, versus what life was like prior to this. In a world where it's increasingly easy to obtain your next meal or your next relationship with the click of a button. It becomes harder and harder to be content with what we already have. There's the saying that happiness is a sense of being. It's not a destination. And deep down inside, we know that external comforts will never nourish the soul. But the technology at hand has placed us in a situation where we always seem to look for the next thing, and our daily practices, our daily activities reinforce and train ourselves to essentially do this in a never-ending loop. I'm not suggesting that we shouldn't want things or that we should just settle for anything. The human mind doesn't deal well when it's stagnant, and that when we are partaking in activities that we don't find interesting, we become restless. It drives us crazy. We actually thrive in the pursuit of things that excite us. But what I am suggesting is that our general perception of success is an illusion. It's not real. And the person who focuses on the negative things when things are not at their best will likely be a person who also focuses on the negative things when things are at their best. The second aspect of Santosha, of commitment, I'll call moving towards versus running away. And to try to illuminate this idea, I'm going to tell you my own story about obtaining my corporate job. Believe it or not, I wasn't always a yoga teacher. I had another career before I was a full-time yoga teacher. So I spent a lot of time in my early life not really knowing what I wanted to do. In fact, I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do until I was about 34, 35. And I'm 45 at the time of this video. But I did know what I didn't want to do. And so this is a thing that a lot of us probably have in common, is that it's very difficult, it's very challenging to figure out what we want, but we usually always know what we don't want. And in my case, I didn't want to be like my father. He was cynical, he was angry, and this was largely around his career, around his job that he maintained for the majority of his life, as long as I can remember. But he would make excuses for this job that he had a family to take care of. He had bills to take care of. But the thing that he didn't seem to grasp fully was that his personal dissatisfaction with his career spilled over into his relationships with his family. So I didn't want to ever be in a position where I felt stuck by my career, by my job. And so it became a high priority for me to complete my education. No one in my family had previously graduated college or university. And so this became a priority for me. And I also realized that this would be the way that I would not wind up like my father. It would allow me to have more options and choices in life. So I spent a lot of time obtaining my college degree. My parents didn't have the money to pay for university. In the US, it's very expensive. So I worked full time while I went to school part time. It took me 8 years to obtain my undergraduate degree. And all along, I was thinking to myself, as I was working jobs I didn't like, service industry work, never really satisfied with what I was doing, always feeling like I was capable of more. But I always had this sense that once I completed university and obtained that corporate job and had a good salary with benefits and vacation and could afford to live a middle class lifestyle, then my life would improve and would get better. And so, lo and behold, after 8 years of university and a year of struggling after that, I finally did obtain a corporate job in the insurance industry. My degree was in political science with environmental science as a minor. I had wanted to work for like a government agency that focused on the environment, or clean air, clean water, or with the national parks, these sorts of things. But because I worked full time through college, I was never able to do internships or get any types of experience beforehand. And so I was overlooked for my job applications, I think largely for those reasons. But a job that I was able to land was with an insurance company. And by all considerations, it was a really good job. But yet, after a couple of years there, I began to become restless and realize that this was not satisfying to me, and I was not happy spending my days in a cubicle processing documents for things that I really didn't care about. My time dealing with this is kind of a longer story that I won't bring to this topic today. But I became sort of very depressed after a while and realized that I needed to make some changes, and that I could not stay in this career, in this job, and that it was becoming a detriment to my mental health. So I started figuring out what it was that I actually wanted to do. I was really into fitness. I was really into yoga. So I decided to become a personal trainer and a yoga teacher. And this has had a huge impact on my life because here's the important detail here. When I decided to leave this job and become a yoga teacher, this was the first time in my life that I stopped making decisions based upon what I didn't want to do, and I started making decisions based upon what I did want to do. And this was a fundamental change that seemed to change the way that I viewed the world, and to change the way that I viewed myself. And then I left that corporate job, and after about a year of finding my footing in my new career, freelance teacher of yoga and personal trainer, I began to find my footing and have some success. I was financially stable. I was enjoying what I was doing. I had plenty of gigs, I guess I could say. And I idealized that along this path, this new career, the epitome of what I could achieve, what I could obtain would be to own my own yoga studio or my fitness studio. And so a year or so down the road from that, I actually did obtain my studio. Now, it didn't take me long to realize that the skills and the job of owning a studio are not the same job as actually training or teaching. I love training and I love teaching. I didn't love so much managing a brick and mortar location, worrying about payroll, worrying about lease and expenses, worrying about the taxes associated with that, and all of the things that you have to consume your time with as an owner and a business manager of a location. My job became less about what it was that I was teaching and offering and more about finding ways to keep getting bodies in the door. And then I found myself in another problem, which was I was no longer happy with what I was doing. For so many years, I thought I would find happiness if I got a corporate job and quit doing service work. And then I obtained that and I wasn't happy. And then I pivoted and thought if I could only obtain my own studio and be my own boss, then I would be happy. And then here I was in a situation where I still was not happy. And so the next thing that I decided to do was to sell everything that I owned and take the experience and the confidence that I had developed from the recent experience and successes that I had and move to Southeast Asia, to Thailand, where I could set up and start all over again. Now, that is a long story in and of itself and not totally pertinent to this story. So the main point that I want to make from this is that going back to one of the comments I made earlier is that if you are not a happy person when things are not at their best for you, you're probably not going to be a happy person when things are going the best for you, because it's a choice, a conscious decision that we have to make to look on the positive side, to look on the bright side, to share positive energy, to be happy. And then also notice within yourself if you are moving towards what you want, or are you just simply running away from what you don't want? And I think that will transform how you view the world. It had a tremendous impact on my personal way of looking at things, and I think largely in a positive way. Notice how much energy you spend moving towards what you want versus avoiding what you don't like. Santosha.